Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you, Marion, and lovely to be with everybody this evening. And as it's cold outside, I'm kind of happy that I didn't have to go out into it. And we're feeling the warmth coming from near Salamanca. So that's all good. This prayer, beautiful prayer, is based on the vow of nonviolence, but based on it and adapted. Recognizing the violence in our own hearts, yet trusting in the goodness and mercy of God, we ask you, O non-violent one, to help us carry out in our lives the love and example you gave us by striving for peace within ourselves and seeking to be peacemakers in our daily lives, by refusing to retaliate in the face of provocation and violence, by persevering in nonviolence of tongue and heart, by living conscientiously and simply, so that we do not deprive others of the means to live, by actively resisting evil and working nonviolently to abolish war and the causes of war from our own hearts and from the face of the earth. O God, we trust in your sustaining love and believe that you will grant us your abundant grace to help us live this prayer. Amen.
Amen. And thank you so much, Sylvia, for that beautiful prayer to start our evening. Now we will turn to our special guest, Nicolás Paz. I am going to hopefully I'm going to take the spotlight of this one and I'm going to put it on this one. There we are, Nicolás. Let me just say a few words about you. Nicolás, of course, is not the famous Argentinian footballer. Much better than that, our Nicolás Paz is director of Pax Christi International's Catholic Nonviolence Initiative. He's a mediator, an expert in conflict resolution, and a faculty member of the Pontifical University of Salamanca in Spain. He's also a member of the coordinating committee of the Catholic Institute for Nonviolence, the European Radicalization Awareness Network, and the European Academy of Religion. He advocates for the institutionalization of nonviolence, advocating for its application in areas from personal relationships to international policy. And he's emphasized how it can be more effective as a tool than violence for achieving goals. We want to hear much more, but before I hand over to Nicolás, could I remind you to put your questions in the chat? And as I said before, don't wait until after he's spoken, or you might forget a vital point that you'd like clarified. So now over to you, Nicolás. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you, Sylvia. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be with all of you here. Thanks a lot, especially, I think even Sylvia doesn't know it, but I have a special connection, personal connection with Ireland. So I'm really glad when I was invited to be part of this. I had the opportunity both of being a student at university in Maynooth, and later being like teaching in Ireland for some time at high school in Bray. So I was really, not only honored but also like really happy when I was invited to be with all of you today. I'm going to share my screen a little bit. So the idea of this presentation is, let me see if it works. Just 1 second. I think you can, all of you, see it now. Well, my humble idea today is like to share a little bit about the work of the Catholic Nonviolence Initiative and also the Catholic Institute for Nonviolence. So especially for those of you who maybe don't know about it, you can know better about the project. And then also talk a little bit about also the Catholic Nonviolence Days of Action and some key lessons that we have learned already from research and practice on nonviolence. So I hope this is also like an invitation for your own questions, because normally when we work on nonviolence, we used to say that we don't bring with a top-down ideas, but we want to work from the reality. So as I said, this is an open conversation, and then to bring your own questions from your own reality, your own needs, your own worries and concerns. And even before of telling about the Catholic Nonviolence Initiative, I wanted to share with all of you and take a little time to reflect, to think about what is on the image, because this is the way we approach to nonviolence. And we like to talk about nonviolence in these 4 dimensions, and trying to keep them in mind and also in our hearts before we go on that conversation. We talk about nonviolence as a spirituality, as a way of life, that we try to incorporate in our more interpersonal lives, that it's also a method for change. And when we talk about that, it means that we are talking that we have tools, that we have strategies that can be learned and we can teach them. And that these tools, these strategies work. When we talk about method for change, we are also trying to show that it's a method for social change, and also a path for personal transformation. But it's key to keep that notion also about the social change, because we are not only dealing with interpersonal violence, for example, or interpersonal conflict, but also with social ones. And also that it's a potential universal ethic. We are a Catholic organization, but nonviolence, it's a patrimony, of all humanity. And we really think that in different cultural backgrounds, with different faith traditions, we can all work on nonviolence. In fact, for example, just to mention, at this moment we are developing, organizing a specific working group on interreligious theology for nonviolence, for example, working with scholars from different faith traditions, but also with secular people that don't feel that they belong or that they feel identified with a specific faith tradition. But for us, it's key, to keep all these dimensions when we talk about nonviolence. So what is the Catholic Nonviolence Initiative? Okay, the Catholic Nonviolence Initiative, it's a program of Pax Christi International. Pax Christi, as you all know, in this year, we are on our 80th anniversary. So it's an organization, the peace Catholic peace movement with long history, with a lot of experience. And in 2016, after some conference at the Vatican, co-sponsored with the dicastery, the Catholic Nonviolence Initiative officially was born. I mean, I say officially because it comes from a very long work from Pax Christi and all the Pax Christi family, the sections in different parts of the world, working on active nonviolence for a long time. And there you can see on that image the three main goals that this initiative has had and keeps having. That it's like showing that nonviolence is at the core of the gospel and it's central to the Catholic life, that it's not an issue, that it's a cross-cutting. We can even talk about it's a new way of approaching. So it's a paradigm, and that as I say, it cross-cuts and it touches like different levels, from the micro one to the macro, you know, from how to deal nonviolent at family level with conflicts, but also what we do in Ukraine or in Gaza, for example. So we think that, you know, nonviolence is, as I say, like at the core of the gospel, and that the other goal is like that the church regularly applies nonviolence as a framework. So that means that the church knows better the tools, the strategies, what works, what are the best practices, what are the best strategies, when, where, and how. Because we really believe that if nonviolence is institutionalized at the church, that has the capacity, the structures, this will make a huge difference, not only in the church, but in the world. And so that is why you see that third goal, so that at the end, like the church structures teach and promote nonviolence at every level, you know, from each parish, you know, it's bishop conference, it's at the schools, at universities, at every institutional level. The Catholic Nonviolence Initiative during these years have been encouraging first all the Pax Christi section, let's say the Pax Christi family, but not only, you know, everybody in the world that it's interested in nonviolence. We have been trying to promote that we celebrate and we promote nonviolence every year during some specific days. That comes from the 21st of September, the International Day of Peace, to the 2nd of October, the International Day of Nonviolence and Gandhi's birthday. Every year we try to develop like a guide that it's not a closed document, but it tries to be a document to inspire people, movements, communities to celebrate and do specific nonviolent actions during those days. And as we believe that nonviolence is diverse and cross-cutting, people, communities, movements do many different types of actions. It can, from the ones that are more like spiritual or religious, people organize pilgrimages, pray vigils, for example, but also some people want to organize something more social or more political, from demonstration to sit-ups to boycott campaigns, etc. Other ones want to work more at the interpersonal level, so they develop specific actions for families And we have people, for example, on the Miriam College working specifically with the students at the schools. We try to organize some context for young people also. And in different parts of the world, it looks different. And I think that's one of the greatest things, because we want to show also the richness of nonviolence. And this is one of the things that we have been trying with the help of many, some of them even are here, to promote these Catholic nonviolent states of action. We don't do it alone. We do it with other organizations in partnerships, like, for example, Campaign Nonviolence in the States, with Pax Bene, with many different organizations in different parts of the world. Not all of them are Catholics, of course, like secular movements and all kind of popular and social movements. So what we are trying is precisely since the very beginning to work on the idea of building movement, and there you can see some the pictures of different actions in different parts of the world. The idea of walking together, of knowing that we are part of a very big family in working on nonviolence and trying to deal with many different kinds of conflicts and multiple violence, from, for example, extractivism in Latin America, to dealing with gangs, for example, in some regions in Africa, or with corruption, or trying to even to protect democracy, for example, now, or trying to protect migrants in the States, for example, from ICE. And here I also want to present you our latest project that was launched last year, and that it's the Catholic Institute for Nonviolence. And after all these years of the working, as I said before, first from all the work done by Pax Christi, then this specific project, the Catholic Nonviolence Initiative, and like that has been working a lot for the last 10 years. We really believe that we are in a new moment. And that's why we launched last year a new project that is the Catholic Institute for Nonviolence, which main mission, is to make make all these nonviolent research, resources, and experience from the grassroots more accessible to the Catholic Church, to its leaders, to the institution, to the Vatican, if you want, but also to the communities. Because all the time, what we are trying to do is like to bridge the reality, the experience from the grassroots to the institution, to the leaders, the hierarchy, the bishop conferences, and the Vatican, so that at the institutional level, they know more about nonviolence, they understand better nonviolence, they know the resources, the strategies, the tools, so that they can really commit the institution to develop nonviolence at an institutional level, as I said before. So last year we launched this institute that it has been moving all this time. It's the institute. It's organized in three big areas. One, it's on gospel nonviolence, so it's more about the theological part of nonviolence, the theological roots, and this area, it's not only, but most of them are theologians, and also in connection with practitioners. Because that's another of our aims all the time, is to, as I was saying before, bridging the grassroots with the institutions, so also now bridging the academia with the practitioners. So that's one of the sections. The other section is on nonviolent practices and strategic power, that it's mainly on like empirical, and it's the more like social, it's more on social sciences, and like researching and showing the best strategies on nonviolence. And the third area, it's on contextual experiences of nonviolence. So how does it really look like nonviolence when we go to every context? Because as I said before, we are not trying to impose any top-down notion of nonviolence, but really working from what people are doing, experiencing, and what they have to share. And at the same time, bringing them examples, ideas, research from other parts of the world, and see if that is also helpful for them. We think that we are a learning community, and that nonviolence is probably a never-ended process of learning for all of us. In these three areas, at this moment, we have like 3 coordinating associates that lead the areas, and around 20 scholars and practitioners have already become associates of the Institute. Many of them are really top scholars in different universities of the world researching on nonviolence. Apart, you can see also on our website, there is really great advisory council of the Institute. And as we are trying to move nonviolence into our Catholic Church, we are trying to have a regular presence in Rome, organizing different seminars, probably next year an annual conference, trainings, etc. So there you can see also what's the connection, because sometimes it's kind of complex organization, Pax Christi and all this family. So there you can see, a little scheme on, the different role of the Catholic Nonviolence Initiative, that it's a project of Pax Christi International, and the Catholic Institute for Nonviolence, that it's a project of the initiative. So the initiative we can say that it's more focused on building and mobilizing a global movement on nonviolence, while the Institute is at the service of all the movement, and also at the service of the Church, to bring them all that research and best practices, best educational programs, trainings, etc., so that the knowledge about nonviolence increases. And I didn't want only like to present, the Catholic Nonviolence Initiative and the Institute, but I thought it was interesting to share with you, maybe briefly, but at least to share what I think that some key ideas, some key lessons that we have learned already on the practice of nonviolence. And it's not only that we have learned, but it's that the most recent research, have the data. For a long time, we have been practicing nonviolence at very different levels, but we didn't have so much interest, probably from the academia, and we didn't have the empirical data to show, for example, what's the level of effectiveness of nonviolence. Now we do have, and one of the lessons we have already known, and one of the key research books is the one by Erika Chinowit and Maria Stefan, Why Nonviolence Works, that shows that nonviolence is twice effective than violence when we go to achieving goals. And a very recent research from Ilker Kalin from the Stockholm University, it confirms the data from Erika Chinowit and Maria Stefan that it's more effective, but it also is able to show, again with empirical data, that it's faster. And this is key because these show us that despite of what many times we think, nonviolence is really effective. Another key ideas is that this effectiveness is specifically related with high levels of participation. So, or in other words, the more people we are able to gather, and the more effective nonviolence becomes. And this is very helpful, not only at the theoretical level, but a very practical one when we have the conversations with the practitioners, because this helps us to design better nonviolent campaigns. And of course, in every movement, we have people that are able to take more risk on a campaign, and that's very good for the to have this kind of activists. But we need to design also actions that are able to bring more people to that campaign, and that entails also to guarantee that there are actions that are not of high risk for so many people, because that will help to have bigger levels of participation. Another key lesson is when from, for example, Wendy Perlman, researching on social movements and nonviolent resistance on Palestine, is that the organizational structure, the level of cohesion of the movements, increases the possibility that a movement will use nonviolence. So that it's key both to understand social movements, but also to understand the powers that want to destroy those nonviolent movements, for example. And one of the key strategies to destroy these movements is to try to attack their cohesion. So to try to attack their organizational structure. And that has made that many social and popular movements in the world are rethinking a lot about their own organizational structures, their own leadership, so that those attacks don't destroy the whole movement. The researchers also saw that international support is a key to speed up the success of a movement. And so, despite some of the recent despair that all of us suffer, that sometimes we feel that supporting a movement in another part of the world, it's not helpful or it's not working well, we see that international support is also key. And the last, but not the lesson I wanted to bring it today is that we know that training on nonviolence has an impact. It's true that this is still a gap on the research, but we really hope to have more data on this lesson in the future. In fact, the Catholic Institute for Nonviolence is hoping to bring, for example, Consuelo Amat and Jonathan Pinky that you see there, teaching us more about the last research they are doing on this. For example, they have made a research on Sudan about the impact of the training on nonviolence. Pax Christi has a lot of experience also on training, and we hope also to be able to gather our own information, our own evaluation, for example, from our program in Africa, training many sisters in nonviolence. And of course, when when you are on the practice, you don't have normally the time and the resources to do at the same time research. But we hope to be able to find the people who are interested in that, and that Pax Christi can offer our own information and our own experience on that. By the way, the Catholic Nonviolence Initiative and the Institute, this year we have launched our first online training program on nonviolence. This has been made in this case in Spanish, because it was focused mainly for Latin America, and even almost without publicity about it, more than 150 people from 16 different countries registered to participate and they have been part of this training that it started in August, and it has just finished now in November. We hope that next year we will launch our first online training on nonviolence in English. So hopefully we will be launching that and sharing it with all of you at the beginning of next year. And just before ending and open the conversation to your own questions, I really think that at this moment, especially thinking about the Catholic Church, we are in a very new magisterium moment. Our new Pope, Pope Leo, started his pontificate and calling all of us to work on an armed and disarming peace. And he has been, making this call at very different levels and with very different sectors of society, but in a very persistent way. For us, this is exactly the definition of what we mean by nonviolence, that it's, working on an armed and disarming peace. So, for example, Pope Leo has been calling to unarm and disarm the language. And he has been telling that to the media, the journalists. And he has been calling the educators, the teachers, to build an unarmed and disarming education. And he has told that to the popular movements. So that really means that that's a support, not only in words, but a support to the strategies and the tools of nonviolence, to the methodology of nonviolence. And that is very disruptive, because when we talk about nonviolent resistance and nonviolent action, we are really talking about very disruptive actions that many times are not perceived as nice, especially for those who are using their power over others. So we think we are really in a new moment, in a very difficult moment, of course, with all the violence that surrounds us, but at the same time with a huge hunger in the world for nonviolence. And well, thanks to all of you. I hope you have find it somehow interesting, and also that this opens for your own questions and further conversation.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. I think everybody will have found that extremely interesting and very encouraging, especially those words from Pope Leo, I think, put in a whole different context to the whole thing. Usually I try to sneak in a question of my own at this point, but there are so many questions already, interesting questions in the chat that I think we will go straight there. Rob is saying, this is an interesting one. How do you see the Franciscan tradition in the Catholic tradition and the Peace Church approach with Protestantism? Is there can you help on that?
Yeah. Well, I can try to at least give two concrete answers. One, we have a very deep connection with the Franciscan tradition. In fact, we are also hoping to be working on to have a group on the spirituality of nonviolence, and working with different traditions, with different Catholic traditions. And the first one that is it has already showed their interest on working on that, it's precisely the Franciscans. So we want to start working on, how the Franciscan spiritual tradition can, help us working on the spirituality of nonviolence. So we are starting that conversation. And in regarding with Protestantism, I have just come from Vienna, being on an ecumenical gathering where there were Protestants, Orthodox, mainly from the Middle East and Eastern Europe. And the conversation of nonviolence was very much appreciated. So I really hope that this conversation will grow on. And of course, it's not that we are here to teach, but also to learn a lot, from our brothers and sisters, for example, from the Mennonites or the Quakers, etc.
Yes, I think we'll learn so much from those other organizations. It's something that we have to be very aware of. Irene is saying she's curious about the interface connections between CNI and the eco movement. Is that something that you're involved in?
We are we have been part since the very beginning with the Laudato Si movement. We have been participating on the 10th anniversary of the Laudato Si movement, that we had the presence of Pope Leo at Castel Gandolfo. We were there bringing specifically the experience and the practice of nonviolence from the grassroots, dealing with environmental conflicts, most of them connected, for example, with extractivism. Mm-hmm. And I must say that again, this approach was very much appreciated, especially from the people on the regions really dealing with violence. And that at some moments they are, we can say, like a little bit fed up of top-down approaches, very, very well intentioned, but not grounded on, for example, on action and also on very difficult situations many times. So yes, we are trying to connect, and of course, like Pax Christi, for example, in Latin America, is very deep working on it, and we are collaborating.
Rosalind has a question that I must agree with. I'm hoping that we'll hear from you on this. She says that she's never heard gospel nonviolence and the Catholic Nonviolence Initiative highlighted in a homily, and she wonders how much it's part of formation for priests in training today. I don't know if you have an answer to that, but it's an
Well,
interesting one.
yeah, that's a very great question. And that's in our goal. So I share that goal with all of you. You know, to if you have the capacity also to try that. And one of the biggest gaps is like on bringing the training on nonviolence to seminarians. By now, we have an excellent receptions among sisters in many different places, but we are having more difficulties to bring nonviolence to the seminarians. So it's also key the local movement, you know, that at the local level, people try to reach that you try to reach your bishop, your priest, and bring that into the conversation. You know, bring nonviolence and gospel nonviolence into the conversation. And of course, you will find probably very different reactions from people who doesn't know anything about nonviolence to others ones that they really know, and they are really glad that you bring that. To others that they think, oh, those are these people, you know, on the streets doing strange things there. So, um, but that's part of the journey. But the local level, it's key, because this is a very big institution, very complex, very diverse. And so moving it entails also moving it at very different levels.
So is it really seen as being kind of no importance in seminaries? Is it just kind of dismissed as something that is an add-on that we shouldn't be bothering about? Is it that bad?
Well, I cannot say from every place, because it looks different in every country. But I can tell you, for example, from my own experience here in Spain, this is nothing known. And the good thing is that it's very difficult that someone, if you go to a priest or to a bishop, that they will tell you, oh, nonviolence, it's a bad idea. Okay, that's not the kind of reaction. But there is we need to deep that conversation on what exactly it entails. Also, to know more about, to have dialogues and conversation about the gospel and what's the message of nonviolence on Jesus, and then how to bring that message to our current reality here and now, how to bring the kingdom of God, that nonviolent Jesus, to reality here. And that's the kind of conversation that we need to initiate or promote or deep at every place and at every level.
Thanks. And just could you answer this one fairly quickly? I've just got an eye on the time there. Bernadette is saying, Can you please explain the position of the Catholic Church on engaged non-violence as opposed to passive non-violence? Don't know if you can give a quick answer to that.
No, that's a very good question. And when we talk about nonviolence, and maybe it's true I didn't go into that specifically, we are talking about something that is active, not passive. It's about really doing, it's about engaging, it's about encouraging, it's about organizing hope. And that entails specific tools, strategies, actions, and practices. And it doesn't mean that everyone has to work at the macro level, not needed, because sometimes this makes people, oh, this is too much for me, this is too difficult. But it's a way to starting doing things. So it's really something active. And as I said before, normally on the discourse, it can be something felt like nice. When we really do it, normally it's perceived as something disruptive, not so nice perceived by many people. And the first reaction, for example, from media is not talking about nonviolent activists. Sometimes even it's like categorizing them as violent, you know. So it's really a huge job on also changing the narrative, showing what it means nonviolence, and also showing the structural violence that people are suffering, that is the most invisible one. For example, like poverty. Poverty, it's violence. It makes people live a violent life. And of course, if we organize a campaign against poverty, and you organize, for example, a sit-up on the streets or a boycott for economical power, is not felt as something nice. But it shouldn't be. I mean, it's what, in more theological language, we need to we need to promote prophetic actions in the world, because we need really witness at this moment.
I'm going to cut to the chase here. The time is going very much against us. I'm going to bring Sylvia back in, Nicholas, and I'm going to ask the two of you to think about where we all go from here. What can all of us who are here this evening take away, and what actions can we think about? Irene has got an interesting question in the chat, which is perhaps a little bit too long for this evening, but it's a wonderful question. But could the two of you just give us a little bit of advice as to where we go next? Nicholas, perhaps you should start that, and then
let me off the hook for a moment.
Yeah. Well, I answered that, and I tried to answer briefly Irene to her question. When we talk about nonviolent strategies and tools, and sometimes it's difficult to imagine, but we are talking from what we normally used to call like nonviolent action, all these nonviolent resistance, boycott, sit-ups, but also for example, an armed civil defense in armed zones, in war. But from that to also negotiation, mediation, all that. And we need to be able to be like bridging all those strategies. and grading them also, so that depending on the context, the situation, we need to use one strategies, one tools, or others. And also, it's of course it's not easy, but we need to balance that and the tensions that Irene was asking about, without pretending not to have tensions. We are not trying to avoid conflicts, but what we are trying is that those conflicts are not managed in a violent way, but in a non-violent way. But not avoiding conflicts. We need, we are different people with different needs, different interests, at different moments, and we need to be able to deal with conflicts, but in a non-violent way. And going to your question, Marianne, on what to do next. Well, I think from our conversation today, one idea could be like trying to bring this conversation to our local priest or our bishop, and trying to bring gospel nonviolence into our parish or our bishop conference. I think that's a key idea, and to spread nonviolence. And that could be one of the things for example, to start doing. Another thing is I always try to encourage people to be part of our Catholic Nonviolence Days of Action. And, think about that, design some specific campaigns, actions for those days. It's a very nice way also of celebrating, of being part of a whole community working on nonviolence and not feeling alone. That's one of the difficulties many times, that all of us, we are on our specific struggles at the local or national level, and we can feel many times alone, and we are not. There are many people in many places working and walking with us.
Sylvia?
Yeah, I would put in about 4 little points. One is that I think it's very helpful to be meeting with other people so that you are supported and encouraged and learning all the time. Nobody has a monopoly. We're very lucky to have Nicolás to speak to us tonight, but, he's not there all the time. And to be meeting with other people who are studying this, researching it, interesting. And so our little nonviolence online group that continued from the launch of the initiative has been, for me, very helpful. It was bigger and it got smaller, but that's okay. And when we hear the examples that are presented by the individual members, I'm just thinking of one, and it was Tomas, who's probably on here tonight, spoke, and it was Palestinian support event in Cork. And one man, an older man who was a son with a disability, what could he do to help? But he used to get on the bus every week or every month or whenever off, and the two of them would go and take part in the walk. That was their contribution. If you're going to an event, what colour flag are you going to fly? Pope Francis said, don't be afraid to raise the white flag. Can we be prophetic? Nicolás invited us to be prophetic, to be a witness, to raise the white flag in all sorts of situations. We can also do some reading and more reading, and the book that kind of in a way led to the birth of this, the Advancing Nonviolence and Just Peace in the Church in the World, is an amazing book, an edited book. And just reading it makes you come alive. The days of action, it's making me really think that, because I would be very involved in promoting Season of Creation, and there's an overlap. Irene kept asking that question, where's the overlap? And let's be creative and thinking about that overlap. And Pat Gaffney put in the chat the theme for World Peace Day. And look, there's a bit of time. It's the 1st of January, the World Peace Day. And I think in England they share it. I don't know, maybe Scotland too, that it happens on the 1st of February or something, or anyway, later in the month of January, because sometimes around the 1st of January, it just kind of comes too quickly. The theme for that, and there will be resources available. That's a great opportunity with the help of the resources to do something at local level, be it in your church, with an interested group, with a secular group, to go for that unarmed and disarming peace. So they're just some little practicals. Oh, you look there, put it in, Valerie put it in, saying it's the 18th of January. And I know sometimes in Ireland, what we could do, perfect time to do it, is the 1st of February, because we know that the feast of St. Bridget, she's the one who gave away her father's sword. So it's a perfect day for nonviolence. Just some thoughts, and thanks for that, Valerie.
Yeah, yes, adding to Sylvia, thanks for what you were saying, and maybe just a little idea that maybe it's helpful, that it's bringing the own words of Pope Leo when you come to reach the bishop or the priest or the local parish, bring the text from Pope Leo, also the text from Pope Francis talking about nonviolence. And so sometimes reminding that it's not something that we are bringing it from outside. It's not like a new idea. I mean, it's really there. I mean, it's really Jesus. It's not the Catholic Nonviolence Initiative. But sometimes we need to remind that.
Thank you both so much. I think we've got some good ideas from that. And I'm going to bring all of this to a close just now with a prayer. And sorry, I've put the wrong one there.
Just while she's looking for the prayer, such a joy this evening. Can I just jump in there, Marion?
Surely.
Just a joy tonight to hear the wonderful accents. So we have Spain and Scotland and Ireland and who knows other places. And to Marion's Trojan work and Pat's suggestion that it maybe happened in the beginning. Thank you, Pat, because I think you're there too. Pat as in Gaffney. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marion.
Well, if we can all come together in prayer to end this wonderful evening, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Dear Father in heaven, you see every injustice, every violent act, every contravention of peace. We seek your guidance as we turn to our earthly leaders, hoping to change hearts, convince minds, and empower them to bring peace to the innocent. We pray that you will comfort the wounded, the bereaved, the disinherited. Lord, help us to make our common home a haven of non-violence. Amen. That is our Pax Christi Scotland prayer of the moment. And may I thank everyone. Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you, Sylvia. And thank everyone who was with us this evening. There are hearts going up. There were thanks in the chat. It's been a very wonderful evening. And I'm really grateful to everyone who has been involved in all of this. Thank you. And I'm going to put the recording off now.